Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. So welcome, everyone. This is February 27th, almost the end of this month of February. It seems almost impossible that the second month of this 12-month is already passed. But there it is. Which brings us to the fact that the Master's birthday, the lunar calendar birthday for Sri Ramakrishna, is March 4th. We will celebrate it on March the 6th, Sunday, March the 6th. That will be Sri Ramakrishna's birthday celebration. Aditya Chaturvedi is in India and so cannot serve as our pujari. We will do as we have done lately. There will be a short talk on the remarkable phenomenon that is Sri Ramakrishna. Then we'll offer our informal worship of the Master in the monastery shrine. And of course, all that will be on Zoom, and you just click on your regular Sunday talk and special events link, and you'll find us there at 11 a.m., starting at 11 a.m. on Sunday, March the 6th. March will be a month for the study of Karma Yoga, and the calendar for that month will be announced in this next week. So this morning, because this is a long talk, so to speak, on Chaitanya's prayer, the perfect primer, there won't be a song. So we'll just start with this. February has been a month for study of Bhakti Yoga. A Bhakti yogi, bhakta, establishes a devotional relationship with God through study, prayer, ritual, and worship. This often begins with a feeling of reverence or awe, which may slowly grow into a conviction that everything, without exception, manifests God's power, glory, and grace. As a bhakta, you practice giving every action, thought, emotion, perception, and tendency a Godward turn. All your energies and attributes, both positive and negative, are offered to the divine presence. Your prayer is for self-surrender and ultimately union with your beloved. That is a summary definition of the bhakta's path. So as I said, our talk this morning is on Chaitanya's prayer, the perfect primer. As I also mentioned earlier, this is a long talk on bhakti, the bhakta path. As always, let me just reemphasize that this is not meant as personal instruction for you. You take from it what you will. It is not dogma. It is not something that you should do. It's something that you might do if it is auspicious for you. And as I said, it's a long talk, so I'm going to ask you to indulge me and for your questions and comments, please get a piece of paper and something to write with and record anything that you might want to say or ask, and we'll take plenty of time to deal with that at the end. As we'll see, Chaitanya was a logician, and as a result, Chaitanya's prayer is very logical in its development. It's like a mathematician writing an equation. So I'm going to define each of the terms of the equation, so to speak, each of the premises of the logic that Chaitanya develops. And I'd like you, as I said, to indulge me by not interrupting so that it can be slowly and logically developed in full. And we will take time for anything you might want to say, add from your own wisdom or experience, or express otherwise at the end. Chaitanya's prayer, the perfect primer. Chaitanya's prayer begins this way. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. Such promises can be taken seriously when they are made to us by the divine incarnations and their saints. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is worshipped by many millions as a reincarnation of Radha and Krishna, born as one being, an avatar. His divine play lived from 1485 to 1534, transformed the practice of bhakti, devotion, in Bengal and in much of South India. This morning we'll study his full prayer and discuss what can be called a perfect primer on the practice of Bhakti Yoga. Each great teacher, incarnation, avatar, brings a special message to suffering humanity. They instruct us in how to move from where we find ourselves at this moment to realization of our true original nature. They instruct us on how to move from where we are now at this moment to realization of our true original nature or knowledge of God. And of course, we have instruction that we study in this tradition from Rama, from Krishna, from Christ, from Buddha, from Shankaracharya, and from Sri Chaitanya, and of course from the founders of this lineage, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Vivekananda, and Brahmananda. Yeah. Chaitanya's prayer as interpreted by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood. Chaitanya's prayer, as interpreted by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood, is recited here during morning arati. It is also heard in the temples, convents, and monasteries of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, at Vivekananda Retreat Ridgely, and other Vedanta centers in the U.S. This prayer brings the practice, goal, and results of chanting the divine name into sharp focus in about 3 minutes. It is, therefore, a primer in the truest sense of the word. The prayer's tone and language are intense. It can be thought of as one of the most beautiful love songs ever written. Chaitanya calls forth the heart's bliss, instructs the mind in how to overcome obstacles, and in the voice of a spiritually awakening heart and soul, speaks lovingly and directly to the divine within. We'll explore the prayer and its teachings in detail. This will include an introduction to Sri Chaitanya and some discussion of the high regard in which that saint was regarded by Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. I've already given you the caveat about this is not personal instruction, and I've asked for you to record your possible comments and questions, hold them in mind until the end, because this is going to be developed very deliberately and logically, not according to the logic that comes from this, but from Sri Chaitanya himself. Who is Chaitanya? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu means great Lord, is regarded by millions in India and elsewhere as an incarnation of God, a reincarnation of Radha and Krishna, Radha Krishna. Many disciples and followers of Sri Ramakrishna also think of Chaitanya as a previous incarnation of the Master. Sri Chaitanya was born in West Bengal, India, in 1485, 537 years ago. And I mentioned that 537 years ago because what he introduced is still very much alive in India and elsewhere today, as it is as we sit here this morning. Swami Vivekananda, after this, that Swami will be referred to simply as Swamiji, had this to say about Chaitanya. The greatest of India's prophets of comparatively modern times in the north was Chaitanya. This one great northern sage, Chaitanya, represented the mad love of the gopis for Sri Krishna. Chaitanya was a Brahmin, born of one of the most rationalistic families of his day, himself a professor of logic, fighting and gaining a word victory. For this, he had learnt from his childhood as the highest ideal of life. And yet, through the mercy of some sage, his whole life, the whole life of that man became changed. He gave up his fight, his quarrels, his professorship of logic, and became one of the greatest teachers of bhakti the world has ever known, Mad Chaitanya. I'm going to interrupt the quote for this note. He also became a monk, a sannyasi. About that, Sri Ramakrishna said, Chaitanya Deva became a sannyasi so that all would salute him. Whoever salutes an incarnation, even once, obtains liberation. Chaitanya Deva became a sannyasi so that all would salute him. Whoever salutes an incarnation, even once, obtains liberation. That's from the Gospel of Srirama Krishna. Let those who have ears to hear. Back to Swamiji's quote. Chaitanya's bhakti rolled over the whole land of Bengal, bringing solace to everyone. His love knew no bounds. The saint or the sinner, the Hindu or the Mohammedan, the pure or the impure, the prostitute, the streetwalker, all had a share in his love. All had a share in his mercy. That's the end of the quote from Swamiji. So here we have a respected Brahmin, a famous pundit of his time and place, a great success in the world as we usually think of success, and Chaitanya renounces it all to become a wandering monk, singing and dancing madly along the roads and byways of Bengal, chanting the name of Hari over and over again in ecstatic bliss. What happened to Chaitanya? Listen to Swami Ranganathananda from his book, Divine Grace. This is Swami Ranganathananda, a former president of the Ramakrishna Order, speaking to a group in Perth, Australia, a Shivananda ashrama there. This is from the book that resulted from his talk. He gave this talk in 1978. Here's what Ranganathananda said. That's the way in spiritual life. First you strengthen yourself, assert yourself, and then sacrifice yourself. Deny yourself and surrender to God through super strength. That is the correct attitude and way. First comes manliness, then comes saintliness or godliness. We must understand that he was speaking to a group of men in Australia in 1978. That's why manliness. First comes manliness, then comes saintliness or godliness. Erect your saintliness on your manliness. That will be a powerful saintliness. So work hard, build up your individuality, and then when you are strong and spiritually mature, you look up and see a greater courage and a greater strength beckoning you, which makes you experience and say, not I, but thou, thy will be done. As we know, Ranganathananda goes on to develop these thoughts beautifully in his book. He refers to the Bhagavad Gita, the works of Adi Shankaracharya, and many other sources as he writes about how to move from a high state of worldly achievement to great spiritual awakening. Yet even though his book is pocket size, it would be quite a challenge to memorize all the Swami's observations and instructions. Not so Sri Chaitanya's lesson plan. His primer on how to progress from a confession that one is utterly without devotion to the Lord to saying, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. That, moving from that confession of no devotion at all to do with me what thou wilt, is less than 50 lines long. We can legitimately call that a primer. It is a short tutorial that covers the basic elements of a subject, and it is memorable. It's interesting to note that in Middle English, primer actually meant devotional manual. So now I'll recite the prayer from beginning to end, and then we'll go through and unpack it, so to speak. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean, and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. O Hari, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drown deep in the waves of his bliss, chanting his name continually, tasting his nectar at every step, bathing in his name, that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord, in each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name, so vast is thy mercy. How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like the tree. Take no honor to thyself. Give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the toys of fame. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a pure and steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as dust beneath thy feet. How I long for the day when an instant separation from thee, O Govinda, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who stealest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. The first line is a simple, straightforward call to action. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly. What might Chaitanya mean by glory? We know the name. What does he mean by glory? Swami Prabhavananda, my guru, often recited this hymn at the beginning or end of a talk. Our salutations to that Supreme Being who is one without a second, whom the sages call by various names. Our salutations to him whose glory has been sung through the rapturous hymns of the worlds, but whose limitless and infinite glory none can comprehend. But again, whom the sages and devotees realize within their deepest meditation and contemplation. Him we salute again and again. May he shine in our hearts, manifest there in all his glory, and dispel all darkness and ignorance. So that's one way to think about what Sri Chaitanya meant by glory. Again, that call to action. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly. Unceasingly. What could that mean? According to the New Testament, the way of the pilgrim, and Sri Ramakrishna, Sarada Devi, Swamiji and Swami Brahmananda, the results are more than worth the effort. First, from the New Testament. You'll find the source for this if you look in the notes later. From the New Testament. We are all called to pray without ceasing, says St. Paul in 1 Thessalonians. The real question is, how? As we shall see, the Jesus prayer provides one good way to pray constantly. Our task is to draw nearer to God. St. Isaac of Syria says that it is impossible to draw near to God by any means other than increasing prayer. Next, from the book, The Way of a Pilgrim. Again, the source is given in the notes. The pilgrim, this is the quote from the book, The Way of a Pilgrim. The pilgrim recalls how he heard St. Paul's admonition to pray ceaselessly and has set out to discover how. He finds an Eastern Orthodox teacher, a starets. It is the simple advice of the starets that falls like a revelation upon his ears. The teacher says, sit down in silence, lower your head, shut your eyes, breathe out gently, and imagine yourself looking into your own heart. Carry your mind, that is, your thoughts, from your head to your heart. As you breathe out, say, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Say it moving your lips gently, or simply say it in your mind. Try to put all other thoughts aside. Be calm, be patient, and repeat the process very frequently. And that is all. Soon, as the starets had suggested, the pilgrim found the prayer at his lips and in his mind, every waking hour as spontaneous and effortless as his breath itself. That's the end of the quote from Way of a Pilgrim. Our own beloved teachers say this about constant prayer. Sri Ramakrishna, japa means silently repeating God's name in solitude. When you chant his name with single-minded devotion, you can see God's form and realize him. Suppose there is a piece of timber sunk in the waters of the Ganges and fastened with a chain to the bank. You proceed link by link, holding to the chain, and you dive into the water and follow the chain. Finally, you are able to reach the timber. In the same way, by repeating God's name, you become absorbed in him and finally realize him. This from Sri Sharada Devi. Once again, let those who have ears to hear. Sri Sharada Devi, the mantra purifies the body. Man becomes pure by repeating the name of God. So repeat his name always. The name of God is more powerful than the senses. Prayer to God makes your heart as pure as the star. As the result of sincere and regular japa and meditation, you will find that God will speak to you. All your desires will be fulfilled, and you will experience pure bliss. Even the injunctions of destiny are canceled if one takes refuge in God. Destiny strikes off with her own hands what she has written about such a person. For those who are from a Christian background, does that not sound like complete forgiveness and remission of sin? Destiny strikes off with her own hands what she has written about such a person. Swamiji, prayer and praise are the first means of growth. Repeating the names of God has wonderful power. Mantra is a special word or sacred text or name of God chosen by the Guru for repetition and reflection by the disciple. The disciple must concentrate on a personality for prayer and praise. These words, mantras, are not sounds or words, but God himself, and we have them within us. Think of him, speak of him. Buddha's Sermon on the Mount says, as thou thinkest, so thou art. As thou thinkest, so thou art. Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda. Practice japa and meditation regularly. Do not miss even one day. Try repeatedly to steady the mind by fixing it on a name or form of God. And at last you will become absorbed in him. If you continue your practice for 2 or 3 years, you will begin to feel an unspeakable joy, and the mind will become steady. At first, you must forcibly pour the thought of God into your mind. Then, as you persist, you will be flooded with joy. All the great teachers just quoted agree. The results of chanting the Lord's name unceasingly do indeed justify the effort. So what does Chaitanya himself say are the effects of unceasingly chanting the Lord's name? He starts with 2 promises. The mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust raging furiously within. The first promise, the mirror of the heart will be wiped clean. Swami Sridharananda, a senior Swami of the Ramakrishna order, who is still alive and working in Australia and New Zealand, Swami Sridharananda, a senior Swami of the Ramakrishna order, was asked about this image. He said, repetition of the name, your mantra, is like a very soft cloth, slowly and slowly, very naturally wiping away layer after layer of accumulated dust, until at last is revealed an ancient mirror, and an image in that mirror of unimaginable, incomparable beauty. That mirror both is and reflects the self, your inmost being, your true original nature. That's what Swami Sridharananda said to me. Let us feel those words in your hearts. That which we struggle and yearn for, as we run after this and that and this, as we chase the divine, the truth, in its limited forms, distorted and diluted by Maya, is and always has been right here, waiting for us. That's what the Swami says. Chaitanya's second promise, that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within, will be quenched, which means totally extinguished. Sri Chaitanya promises that if we indeed chant the name of the Lord and His glory unceasingly, that forest fire for the world raging furiously within us will over time become dead. Can any of us pretend we don't know what that mighty forest fire is? Cartoonists have it right, don't they? Think of an animated cartoon that shows some young guy cruising along in his shiny new convertible. He passes, now just think of these animated cartoons, we've all seen them. Some young guy cruising along in his shiny new convertible, he passes an attractive young woman strolling down the street, and boing, his cartoon eyes pop right out of his head as he ogles that woman. What the artist is showing us is that our senses don't just quietly lie in wait for sensations. Oh no, they reach out for stimulus. They rage after what they desire. And they argue with us vehemently when we try to restrain them. Maybe you're driving down the street when you spot a sign that says, if it's something sweet, cold, and creamy you crave, come to McDonald's for an ice cream cone, only 99 cents. Good ad copy, isn't it? It's gotcha. But you think to yourself rationally, well, yes, but I know perfectly well I don't need that cone, those extra empty calories, and the mind right away talks back, but it's low fat and it's only 99 cents. Unless you yield to that voice of temptation as you drive by the McDonald's in the next block, the senses that crave that sweet, cold, and creamy treat will probably chatter at you all the way home. And when you get there, they will remind you there's a fudgesicle in the freezer. We just can't pretend we don't know what's meant by that mighty forest fire raging furiously within. Swamiji, in his commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and elsewhere, offers detailed explanations of why and how Chaitanya's promises are actually kept. He explains the mechanism by which chanting the name and so on actually works. Swamiji affirms chanting the name, japa, nama, actually can calm the mind so deeply that lust for the things of the world loses its grip on your waking awareness and therefore on your actions. I'm going to repeat that. Swamiji, who is, of course, one of the greatest instructors that ever came to the United States, to the West, and offered us his instruction, says, chanting the name, japa, nama, actually can calm the mind so deeply that lust for things of the world loses its grip on your waking awareness and therefore on your actions. So Chaitanya Deva, in 4 poetically charged lines, has made his case for what you're to do. Chant the name and glory unceasingly, and the results you can expect to achieve if you do what he asks. Your true original nature will be revealed in all its splendor. Your experience of that splendor will no longer be fragmented and lost among the ever self-renewing, unsatisfiable cravings of worldly lust. Sri Chaitanya continues his instructions. First, he says, ask the Lord directly for what you need to begin to move ahead. And the lines in the prayer are, O name stream down, the name that means most to you. O name stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. In the Chandi, speaking of the mother of the universe, it says, you are of the form of the moon and moonlight and happiness itself. Mother, who is the creator, sustainer, and transformer of this universe. You are of the form of the moon and moonlight and happiness itself. Moonlight is the reflected glory of the sun and sunlight. Swami Yatishwarananda, Swami Yogeshananda's first teacher, who was a disciple of Brahmananda and served as a vice president of the Ramakrishna order, commented, the spiritual aspirant feels there is a lotus at the level of his heart, the petals of which are directed downwards. When this center is reached by the mind, the bud of the lotus opens and the petals get directed upwards. The lotus blooms, and so it becomes the cup open to receive the reflected knowledge of God for which you are praying. Knowledge of thyself. What is this knowledge? Let's go back. So that's what Sri Chaitanya says, knowledge of thyself. What is this knowledge? Let's go back over some quotes from our teachers about the nature of this knowledge. Ramakrishna, when you chant his name with single-minded devotion, you can see God's form and realize him. Sri Sharda Devi, as a result of sincere and regular japa and meditation, you will find God will speak to you. Swamiji, the disciple must concentrate on a personality for prayer and praise. These words, mantras, are not sounds of words, but God himself, and we have them within us. Brahmananda, if you continue your practice for 2 or 3 years, you will begin to feel an unspeakable joy, and the mind will become steady. This knowledge is not book learning, not theoretical musings, not something heard from a speaker on a Sunday morning. It is direct, experiential knowledge of God found within yourself. Chaitanya Deva then speaks directly to that self. O self, drown deep in the waves of his bliss, chanting his name continually, tasting his nectar at every step. Sri Ramakrishna said, Dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you can plunge to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. Like Om, love is a single word that says what God is. Another name for God, a more complex word, is Satchidananda. That bliss Chaitanya speaks of, so to speak, is 1/3 of the term Satchidananda. Yet Satchidananda cannot be separated. So when you dive deep, when your mind is drowned in the continual chanting of the name, you are immersed not just in the bliss, but in the totality of inseparable existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute of God. In Sanskrit, this is a very holy and sacred term. It says that this verbalizing, open with your lips or in the mind, is Shabda Brahman. Brahman in the form of sound or vibration. Therefore, when you truly are chanting his name continually, when your entire consciousness is suffused with the nectar of his being, Satchidananda itself transforms you. Your actions, karma, will change. And as Holy Mother said, even the injunctions of destiny are canceled. Destiny strikes off with her own hands what she has written about such a person. In other words, your karma changes. Your sins are forgiven. Chaitanya continues, still speaking to the self within. Bathing in his name, that bath for weary souls. Over and over, we are told by the great teachers that there is great power in God's name. Even the great non-dualist Adi Shankaracharya wrote and sang Bhaja Govindam, which means chant the name of God. They chant the Lord's name as Govinda, Krishna. That's what Bhaja Govinda means. Bhaja Govinda means chant the Lord's name as Govinda, which is a name of Krishna. So even Adi Shankaracharya, the great non-dualist teacher, says that we must do this, that just intellectual knowledge will not save us. Chaitanya then underlines this and frees his practice from both rigidity and priestly entanglement. And these lines do that. They free his practice from rigidity and from priestly entanglement, any kind of priest. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name, so vast is thy mercy. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name, so vast is thy mercy. Chaitanya, the mad avatar, also was a rebel against religious bigotry, that fanatical devotion to one form or name of God, denouncing all others, and the incrustation of priestcraft, the insistence that a schedule of esoteric rites, rituals, and ceremonies performed by others is necessary to attract God's compassion and grace. Not surprisingly, Swamiji clearly echoes these thoughts. This is a quote from Swamiji. Japa is repeating the holy name. Through this, the devotee rises to the infinite. This boat of sacrifice and ceremonies is very frail. We need more than that to know God. It is not necessary to go all through. It is not necessary to go through all these ceremonials to reach the meaning of the Vedanta. That's the end of the quote from Swamiji. So having celebrated the Lord's omnipotence, liberality, and compassion, Chaitanya now speaks for the first time in the voice of the devotee. In 3 stunning lines, the aspirant confesses, "How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name." This is the crux, the turning point of Chaitanya's prayer. This recognition that, though the Lord offers to take the yoke from his heavy-laden shoulders, even though the Lord offers to take the yoke from his heavy-laden shoulders, the devotee is as yet unbending and cannot kneel so that the yoke can be removed. What courage it takes to make such a statement. This is not the mea culpa of a weakling. It is the powerful, honest recognition of bitter truth. The aspirant's wretchedness is of his own making. The aspirant's soliloquy continues, first directed within. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like the tree. Take no honor to thyself. Give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like the tree. Take no honor to thyself. Give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. The devotee reviews step by step what must be done to break his unbending pride to gain devotion. Swami Yatishwarananda once told Swami Yogeshananda, for every one step forward spiritually, you must take 2 steps ethically. Yatishwarananda told Yogeshananda, for every 1 step forward spiritually, you must take 2 steps ethically. Humility, patience, forbearance, modesty, magnanimity, those are ethical steps. And then the repeated instruction, let nothing deter me from chanting the Lord's name. Next, addressing the Lord, the devotee affirms. Next, addressing the Lord, the devotee affirms that discrimination and renunciation are replacing his yearnings for the attractions of worldly life. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the toys of fame. Instead, the aspirant now prays for the highest. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A quick note about being reborn. Listen to this verse from the Devi Mahatmyam, the Chandi, the 700 verses on on Durga, the Divine Mother. This is about that salutations. This grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. Salutations be to you, O Narayani, O you who in the form of minutes, moments, and other divisions of time bring about change in things and have thus the power to destroy the universe. Based on this promise and our Sarada Devi's promise that even the injunctions of destiny are cancelled if one takes refuge in God, it is possible to think that you do not need to wait for another lifetime for your life to change. It is possible you can be reborn, and Mother can grant you that precious, steadfast love for the Lord this instant, this very instant. It is Mother who is creating all this change through our sense of time, space, and causation. She can bring it to an end at any moment and destroy the universe as you experience it and thereby liberate you. Since we can't imagine that any word of Chaitanya's prayer was written carelessly, he was, after all, the master logician. It could be that in these next very dramatic lines, that Mahaprabhu also makes a small joke, a clever play on words. He writes, "A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as dust beneath thy feet." A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as dust beneath thy feet. If in his mercy the Lord makes you part of the dust beneath his feet, it is pretty clear that your drowning days are over. An intimate connection with the divine is complete. Where is the world's fearful ocean then? Naturally, there's much more to these 4 lines than a sort of spiritual jest. In seed form, they point toward one of the relationships that we have with the divine, the attitude of a servant. For indeed we are, whether we are aware of it or not, a servant of the divine will. As Sri Sharada Devi says plainly, "Listen, dear. When God first created man, he endowed him with the spirit of goodness. As a result, men were born with wisdom, and it did not take them long to realize that the world was an ephemeral thing. Immediately they took the name of God and set out to meditate on him, and by his grace, he liberated them from the bonds of life. God thought, this will not do. It is not the way to make them play the game of life. In the end, along with the spirit of goodness, he mingled in profuse quantities of the spirit of materialism and that of vanity. Now the game of life could go on with a swing." That quote starts on page 212 of the Company of the Holy Mother by her direct disciples. think of what she said. Each of us is serving to make God's game of life go on. That is a transformative thought indeed. After all, if we believe that Tattvamasi, that thou art, if you believe Tattvamasi, that thou art, then this is your game, our game. As the Atman, as Sri Krishna says, we are doing this for our own purposes. Swami Prabhavananda was fond of saying, we should give every aspect of our lives a Godward turn. To apply that thought here, perhaps Chaitanya is suggesting that since we do serve the Lord's purposes, it is best if we purposefully remind the Lord and ourselves that we are his servants and ask for his protection. Ramakrishna once said to M., the man who wrote the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, in order to realize God, one must assume one of these attitudes, Shanta, Dasya, so on, 5 attitudes. Dasya is the attitude of a servant toward his master. Hanuman had this attitude toward Rama. He felt the strength of a lion when he worked for Rama. In the next lines of Chaitanya's prayer, we hear a devotee whose transformation is nearly complete. Unceasing repetition of the Lord's name has filled the devotee's being with the Lord's presence. Any thought of worldly achievement or pleasure has vanished. All that remains is an intense yearning for union with the Beloved, called Govinda, a name of Krishna. Chaitanya wrote, "Ah, how I long for the day when an instant separation from thee, O Govinda, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void." Many great devotional mystics have described this abandonment of the divine. Half a world away, a contemporary of Chaitanya has very similar compassionate longing. This is from The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. O thou beloved, love eternal, my whole goal, happiness which has no bounds, I desire to appropriate thee with the most vehement desire and the most worthy reverence. Chaitanya, in his last 9 lines of the prayer, summarizes that final stage of that devotional practice, the Madhura Bhava, roughly translated the sweet mood. The last lines of Chaitanya's prayer are, "Prostrate at thy feet let me be, in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who stealest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone." That humility, that perfection, says Chaitanya, is the goal. The beginning is Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. Thanks for your patience with me. I wanted to get all that said. As I said, it is a very logical development of a very complex series of thoughts. It is, if you will, a logician's development of a syllogism. It is a mathematician's development of an equation. So I wanted to identify all of the premises of the syllogism, all of the components of the equation. It went by very quickly, I know. If any of you want to review it, these notes will be posted with the talk on our YouTube channel. You can find all that through the website, through the Facebook page, and so on. Now, if you wish to take the time, certainly we can take the time to explore anything you want to contribute from your own wisdom or experience, any concern you'd like to express about this, or any question you'd like to ask. Anyone at all, anything at all you'd like to say.
Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
Chaitanya's prayer and the lecture you read was so profound and inspiring. It's extremely profound and inspiring, and it answered many questions. It answers almost all the questions that we go through in life. Thank you so much.
Well, isn't Chaitanya Deva amazing?
Amazing.
That
Definitely.
he indeed not only brings up, but then answers the question, just as a logician should, just as a mathematician should, in developing these syllogisms, these equations.
Thank you so much.
First, we state the issue at hand, and then resolve it. And indeed, Chaitanya Deva does. That's why I said, this is a perfect primer, worthy of our study.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Haima. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this is Sundar here.
Yes, Sundar.
Could you explain again what is meant by chanting the glories of the God, like names and glories? So can you explain what is glories? You explained it in the beginning, but I was not able to get
Well,
it.
if you go back, when the notes appear, you can read Swami Prabhavananda's salutation. The glories of the divine. Now, this is from a bhakta's point of view. A bhakta does not regard life as a dream, and does not discriminate against the things of the world and of the universe, but instead looks with reverence and awe at the manifestation that presents itself to our organs of action and our organs of sense. We have these 5 organs of action, these 5 organs of perception. The Bhakta says, this is all a manifestation of God's power and grace, and therefore his or her glory, his and her glory, so to speak. So all of what we experience, which has been celebrated in so many hymns and so many prayers and so many poems over the years by those who have a devotional temperament, who come from the heart and see this not as a dream, but as an expression of the divine's presence in which we are immersed. So all of being, creating, doing, and sharing is the glory of God. And so we celebrate it all. And this is what Swami Prabhavananda meant by saying, when he said, give everything a Godward turn. Think of everything in terms of the fact that it is an expression of and contains the divine presence. The unitary way of thinking about this is, as Swami Yogeshananda taught this to his disciples, consciousness is primary and is not plural. Therefore, everything that we see, everything that we can interact with through our organs of sense, our organs of action, is an expression of the divine. There is no separation. Satchidananda and its expression as existence, knowledge, and love are one. Does that get it, Sundar?
Yes, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Yes, what is God's glory? Anyone else? Thank you.
Shankara,
Yes, Lori.
Laurie. Just to add a little, in the Gospel of Thomas, it said that Christ said that the kingdom is spread upon the earth and people do not see it.
Yes, that's all also in the Gospel of John, I believe. It is both within you and without you. You see it not. Yes, but this is what Chaitanya is telling us. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory, and you will see it. As Srirama Krishna said, you will see it face to face. It will be with you and speak to you. And many and many and many don't think this cannot happen to you. I've been with the disciples since 1973, February of 1973. I've been with the Swamis and their disciples since then. Many have testified that this has actually happened to them. And I've heard that from people in the nearly 12 years that I've been here. So yes, we can learn to see it both within us and without you. There's those lovely lines from the Beatles song, within you and without you. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, this was very taxing, I know, to try and get this all said and assimilated. But at the end of this study of the Bhakti month, I wanted to offer this formulation by Sri Chaitanya. His birthday is coming up in about 3 weeks. He was born in February 1485, but the birthday moves around because it's lunar, and this year it's March 18th. But he was born in mid-February 1485, according to the Gregorian calendar.
Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Excuse me. Can you tell us again when he died?
1534. I forget just exactly what month it was, but it was 1534. So he lived quite a while. And he
Thank
ended
you.
his life. He ended his life in Puri. And there are various legends about how his life. One of the legends, we just have no idea which one is true. And Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother never commented on this. But one of the legends is that he simply merged into the image of Jagannath there at Puri, which is, believable. He had become quite an ethereal being, I'm sure. No reason for him to retain physical form. So that it would be perfectly expected that he would merge with the Lord of the universe, which is what Jagannath means. Anything else from anyone? Well, this is what happens when we have to wait till the end. I know. That's why we normally pause during the talk to offer these questions and concerns and these comments when they come up. So again, thanks for your patience and indulging me in this way, because it was just my desire to get it all said. Anything else before we close? All right, dears. Well, if you want to go over this, the notes will all be there in the along with, it'll be a PDF that you can download along with the talk when it's posted in this coming week. So we'll close with our closing prayers. Again, just to remind us, this is the lovely translation provided to us of an ancient prayer, but something for us to be able to grasp and be part of as Westerners. Swami Yogeshananda translated the prayer this way: let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. Let us go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So all our classes are in full swing again after the little break having to do with my surgery, which, by the way, was totally successful. Very gratified to report that. And I'm recovered, as you can see. So all classes are in full swing. Just a reminder that the weekday classes have been moved back a half an hour. So they now start at 7:30 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. And Arati has also been moved back from 7 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Next week, we will celebrate the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna, March 6th. We'll celebrate Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. His actual birthday is March 4th, according to the lunar calendar. We'll celebrate it instead of on that day, we'll celebrate it on the 6th, on that Sunday, so we can all be together. There are other pujas going on here in Atlanta, by the way, for any of you who are interested. I'm sure if you check, you can find them. Check with your temple or whoever it is that you might check with them. Maybe we'll find out a little bit about it and put it in the newsletter. In any event, that's where we are with all this. So until we gather the next time, dears, so good to have been with you. And I don't know, maybe next time that this is offered, I'll break it into 2 pieces. I don't know. So we'll have time to talk more. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears.
Thank you so much, Shankara.
Until
you,
next
brother.
time, dears.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being part of this. All right. Sayonara.